Is it permissible to take children to theme parks? You give an example, but the example means nothing to me because I don't know it. And restaurants that sometimes you can hear pipe music in them. Let me answer it this way. If you're going to live in the ocean, are you going to get wet? You're going to get wet. Then when you come out the ocean, you say, Subhanallah, I'm wet. This is living in these lands. You live in a land where you're drowning in all of this, affliction and environment, which is un-Islamic. A lot of it is un-Islamic. So when it attaches to you, you wonder where it came from. Because of the environment that you've chosen to live in. The ard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wasi'a. The earth of Allah is vast and expansive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not command you, and nor did He force you to live in this land. There are lands that are better than this land for Muslims. There are lands where Muslims can live and never experience, not for a second, Islamophobia or racism. Never. In Muslim lands. Not for a minute, you won't even feel it. The women will not be mocked or spat at. And they will not be called names, and they will not be beaten up at bus stops or on buses or in the subways. In those lands, Muslims will not get stabbed and beaten. We have a choice to live in this land or live in Muslim lands. Most of us. Right? I'd say the vast majority of us have a choice. But we choose to live in this land because of the dunya and because of the glitter of the dunya that this land offers us. It offers wealth. It offers an opportunity to educate yourself as long as you take their riba. As long as you pay them riba, they'll give you your student loan, and then they tie you into this country for the next 25 years upon a mortgage. Because that's what you're taking out when you take a student loan. You're taking a mortgage with a different name. It is called student loan, but it's a mortgage in essence. And you spend 25, 30 years paying it back. Or you spend 25, 30 years lying to them or deceiving them or tricking them so you don't have to pay it back. Either way. So if you live in a land where you are soaking yourself, and then you come out and you wonder why you're so wet, it's because you're soaked. As for the lands of the Muslims, it is the opposite. You're upon dry land. Can you find water to soak yourself in? Yes, you can. Because if you want to commit zina, you can commit it in a Muslim land. If you want to drink wine, you can drink it in a Muslim land. But you'd have to just work harder to get to it, by and large. If you want to commit sin, you can commit it in a Muslim land, but it's harder. Here, the principle is inverted. Sin is the norm, and piety is the exception. In those countries, the environment and just the culture of the people and the heritage of the people is generally a heritage of piety as far as the worship of Allah and various standards of Islamic conduct are concerned, that it is kept, whether it be in Somaliland or whether it be in Morocco, or whether it be in Egypt, whether it be in Libya, whether it be in Algeria, and likewise in places like Pakistan, and of course definitely in the Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, which is of course the land of Tawheed, and it is the best land to live in the world, or whether it be Bahrain, or whether it be Kuwait, or whether it be the Emirates. All of these are Muslim countries. The amount of exposure you have towards sin and transgression differs from land to land. But you are in a better land. No one frowns at you for praying. No one spits at you for growing a beard or wearing a hijab. So these questions will not stop coming. And that is because this land is not becoming more pious or more religious or more moral. It is not. In fact, it's going the opposite way. It's inclining towards personal freedoms, personal liberties. What does personal freedoms and personal liberties mean? Basically, do what you wish. As long as you don't commit a criminal offense, in their eyes, whatever a crime that they've decided is a crime, as long as you don't commit a crime, these personal liberties and personal freedoms, then they will be maintained. And you and your families and your children are growing up in such a land. And the reality is that there's huge bodies of institutions and organizations and groups and oceans of people in these Western lands that actually don't want Muslims here. Or if they want you here, they don't want you practicing your religion here. So this question here really just touches the, just touches the tip of the iceberg. Because when you look at an iceberg, there's only 15% of the iceberg or 20% of the iceberg above water. The rest of it is all underneath. So you've just touched the surface. Because there is much worse than this. The permissibility of taking your children to theme parks, not a problem. That's not really the challenge in this country, is it? Whether you can go to a theme park and let your children go on bumper cars, that's not really there's nothing haram in that. But there's a greater question than this, because you find theme parks in Muslim countries, no harm if you go. As long as you don't indulge in anything haram, there's no harm in that. Going to a restaurant, there's no harm in that as long as you don't eat haram and you don't indulge in haram, and it is not serving things like alcohol and pork and so on, that you're not consuming that, or that it is not a restaurant that is known for serving intoxicants and so on. And if you can avoid those places, better. But the thing is, the question is actually a lot broader than that. And that is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened up the earth and made it vast, what excuse do you have before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not going back to your Muslim heritage countries or not investing in your Muslim heritage countries? No, it's not for everyone, because certain people have come and they don't have a Muslim heritage country to go back to. But many of us do. And most of you have first-hand experience, most Muslims who practice their religion. And their religion is apparent upon their bodies, either in their clothing or in their beards or in their conduct. Islam is apparent in them, or even the color of their skin. I don't know of a single Muslim, and I've met thousands and thousands of them, except at some stage in his life he has a personal experience with Islamophobia. Either a comment or an abusive comment, or someone swore at them, or someone threw something at them, or the sister who got pushed in the back, or her scarf got pulled off her head, or she got spat on. I don't know a single Muslim, not one. Imagine that. In a country that talks about personal liberties and personal freedoms, that this makes, this is part of British values. So we're being told that we are living in a land that we must uphold British values, whereas we seldom see British values, being acted upon us. Where are their so-called British values of allowing us to practice our religion without being molested and without being harassed and without being sworn at? That you sit on a bus and no one wants to sit next to you because they see you as filth. Or that you sit on a bus, or your wife is on a bus or upon public transport and she gets sworn at, or someone spits at her or makes a comment under her breath, and your families and your wives or your children are made to feel uncomfortable. And we are made to feel inferior. So ask yourself the broader question, which is that for how many generations and for how many years will you suffer this abuse and this harassment? There is no uprising that we want in this country. We are not here to uprise or revolt or anything, nothing like that. Quietly and simply, we leave. You're not welcome here. All this issue of demanding rights and demanding rights and demanding rights, we've been demanding our rights since my grandfather came to this country in 1943. Nothing in reality has changed. In fact, the only thing that has changed, they used to swear at us based upon your color. Now they swear at you based upon your color and your religion. So my nasiha to you, the sister who asked this question, is that you need to, in your minds, with your families, make a plan. Make a project. What's a project? A project is a temporary endeavor that has a beginning and an end that produces a unique, result, service, or product. What's your temporary endeavor? Get out of here and get somewhere else. It has a beginning. This project has a beginning and the end. So you start the project with a plan. A plan that states how you're going to get out. What do I need? How much wealth do I need? What do I have back home? Yes, we call it home. Why is it home? Because they'll make you feel at home. No one's going to call you, you terrorist, or you this or you that. All right, so you have a plan. How much money will I need? Does my father or my mother or my grandparents or my relatives have land out there already? If they do, then that's a good start. How do I invest in that land without getting ripped off? Because you can get ripped off in any country, even in this country, right, by cowboy builders and all types of people. How do I stop myself from being, my wealth being consumed and being defrauded? So you have to work that out through relatives, friends, whatever mechanism that you use. You need a plan. When I go out there, what are my children going to do? What am I going to do? Will I have to come back and work and bring money back? Okay, fine, if that's what I have to do to begin with. A plan that is executable. So you have to execute that plan, right? Because we're talking about there's an end. What is the end? That you end up there. The beginning, it begins with the plan. It begins with a vision and a scope. What's your vision? Your vision is that I want to be out of here and be comfortable in a Muslim country where I can get education. Yes, there'll be fewer Salafis possibly in my town or my village. It doesn't matter. Because you need a plan for that as well. And in certain villages and towns and cities in Muslim countries, the Salafis are more. Maybe I need to go to those places and settle there instead of the village where my parents came from, where there are no Salafis. You have to think about things. So this comes all in the planning process. Then the next stage, which is even harder than planning, is execution. Executing that plan, because that's the big step, right? You got a house here. Am I going to rent it? Am I going to sell it? I've got a council house, because of course, that's how they tie you to this country. If you leave this country, you lose your council house. Oh, subhanAllah, I'm going to lose my council house. Who cares? Is there a council house anyway? I don't care. All right? But that's what holds people. Housing association or council house, if I lose that, and then what's going to happen to my universal credits and my housing benefit? Khalas, leave it. Tawakkal Allah. But not just tawakkal Allah, but tie your camel by having a plan. Execution of the plan is the hard bit, because that really now takes that you cross that line and you do. In the planning process, you may have to make, some reconnaissance visits where you go and you scope out the area, the land, and you say, well, actually, that's where my father came from. That's where my mother came from. Which of the two towns is better for me and for my children? Which one has the madrasa? Or if they don't have a madrasa, is there online teaching that I can enroll my children upon, even though they're living in a foreign land, that they can enroll upon? All of this is part of your planning. When you execute because you planned well. As you're executing, that you monitor what you're doing, because you may find that you may have to go back a step. That I bought the wrong house, or I went to the wrong village. Be ready to change. Right? This is called, monitoring your execution. And then eventually it may take time. It may take a year, 2 years in your planning. You'll have to put a time limit on it, because you don't have a project without an end goal. The end has to be visible to you. And the vision must remain. And you must keep returning back to the vision. You may alter as you go along. Because when you start building something, a house, then you know that actually I put the wrong size of kitchen in. So I'm going to add another meter, another foot, or whatever. Even in the planning, well, we planned for August. It's not going to happen in August because we're not going to have enough money. And we haven't found a buyer for the house, and so on. And we haven't made enough visits back to the Muslim heritage country to see whether we can invest our money there. If you look at the big multinationals in the world today, where they're all investing? In Britain or in the Far East? Where they're all manufacturing? Where they're putting their money? Where they're putting their investments? It's all in those countries, in our countries, in essence. Whether it be Pakistan or whether it be Bangladesh, or I don't say go to India because it's not a Muslim country, but whether it be Bangladesh, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be in some of the African countries and Morocco and so on, these are growing economies. And even in the Far East, Malaysia, Indonesia, Muslim countries. They're investing over there because they see future and potential. We're keeping our money here. There is future in the lands of Islam and the Muslimin. They are growing. In years gone by, they used to call them the tiger economies. China, the fastest growing economy in the world. Fastest growing economy in the world. And who benefits from China's wealth? The neighboring countries. All of them are benefiting. The ones that are closest to China, they're benefiting. Right? And many of those countries are Muslim countries. Why? Through trade. We're just sitting here, wake up in the morning, walk in the street, and you're called a Paki or a nigger or whatever else they call you. Muslim terrorist or Taliban or whatever. You spend the whole day like this, and you can ruin the mood of a person for a couple of days. 4 days ago, someone that called me this name and he swore at my wife. It's not easy, barakallahu feekum. These names are so look at the greater picture and start planning. Don't say you can't, you can. I'm looking at the faces in front of you, majority of you from Muslim heritage countries. And alhamdulillah, a lot of brothers are going back to places like Somalia and Morocco and Pakistan, and the da'wah is building in those countries. Plan and invest. They don't want you here anyway. When I say they, I don't mean every single last one of them doesn't want you here. Some of them may even come out and fight for your rights. But the thing is, I'm not sitting here for a century because I'll be dead. I mean, my children will be dead, waiting for you to give me my rights. I'm not interested. Because we don't even, even humanity, we don't receive it from many people in this land. We don't get normal human treatment. You can't walk down the street without certain areas that a Muslim can't go into because he's afraid that his wife or his children will be beaten and beat up. And they say, no, we'll protect your rights. That's very well. But it doesn't help when your child is in intensive care. It doesn't help. We'll fight for your rights. It doesn't matter. His leg is broken and his arm is broken and his head is fractured. You can go and fight for someone else's rights because those rights are innate and you didn't give them to us. Right? Because of this Islamophobia that is institutional in this country. It's endemic and it's institutional. So make plans and get out, barakallahu fi. In the meantime, if you need to go to a restaurant, go to a restaurant. But don't do anything haram. If you need to go to a theme park or safari park and whatever, go. No haram. You want to go camping in Wales, go. No harm. But your long-term plans for your children and your grandchildren should be a bit more long-term than just the next theme park that you're going to visit.